Hey, hey, are you in the mood to have a cozy creative session? Let's draw some cute, fun, spooky ghosts. If so, grab your iPad, your Apple Pencil, and let's come hang out and draw some cute little ghosts that look like they're up to no good or at least about to have a party. Let's start with a square canvas so your ghosts have plenty of room to hang out. I'm going to use a 5000 by 5000 pixel canvas because who knows what I might want to do with this later. And that's going to be 300 DPI, and I'm going to use a RSGB profile. And I'm going to go ahead and change out my background color just a little bit. I'm going to use a little bit of a cream color just to get rid of that pure white brightness. And I've already created a color palette for us to use today. And I'll go ahead and share those colors with you on the screen. And then for this drawing session, I'm going to be using my DDS sketchy pencil, and then I'm going to be using my DDS smooth inker for the line art, and I'll make sure and link both of those in the description. We're going to start with the middle ghost, and we're going to draw a loose round shape for the head and body. We're not going to worry about making it perfect. You know, ghosts are literally kind of little wobbly, a little bobbly. But we're just going to build the body with some simple shapes, you know, a little bit of a rounded top. You're going to let your sides curve outward slightly, and then you can taper your body towards the bottom, or you can even let it flare out a little bit. Add a wavy sheet edge, and you can keep that uneven or bring it to a tip, you know, whatever tickles your fancy. And I decided to go ahead and have a retro movie theme. So I'm just adding some little stick figure arms and a rectangle for a VHS tape, and then just some oval eyes. I'm going to bring those down a little bit on the head. And for this, I'm going to give this one just a cute little smile. And I'm just going to make a couple little circles so I remember to put cheeks in later. Now you can, of course, do a variety of shapes and mouths to give your ghost a completely different look. Now we're going to bring in our second ghost, and we're going to sit this one slightly behind the first one and a little bit shorter. Go ahead and give this one a cute little bow. And I'm going to change this one's face so she just looks full of fright. And once again, I'm just giving her a stick figure arm. And since she's a little scared and frightened, she's going to get herself a little blankie. And I'm just kind of making a rectangular curved shape, and then just throwing some cross hatch lines to signify plaid. And we're ready for ghost number 3. And this one I'm going to make a little bit taller and kind of curve away from the group. And once again, some ovals for eyes. This one I'm going to give more of an open mouth. And we've got ourselves some popcorn up here, holding it up in the air because obviously yummy snacks. And then just that wide open mouth because, you know, to eat the snacks, of course. Wavy lines on the bottom, and just take a look at my overall composition. See, you know, how's it going? Do these things look weird? Are they doing okay? And I kind of like it. I think it's kind of cute. I think they're ready for a movie session after midnight. So I'm ready to go ahead and turn down the opacity on this layer and add a new layer so I could start working on my line art. And this is where I'm going to use my DDS Smooth Inker to get some nice crispy lines. Now, I kind of want this to match some other ghosts I have, so I'm going to go ahead and outline this with black. I had originally planned on outlining it in one of the purples, but for the sake of cohesion, I will not be doing that today. However, you use as much purple and lavender as your little heart desires. And I'm just playing with the stabilization and the streamline on my brush because sometimes, you feel like a stabilization. Sometimes you don't. Kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're extra wobbly, crank it up. If you're trying to write some letters, you're gonna possibly struggle and need to turn it down a bit. And this is the part where we just sit back, trace our designs, and relax, get zen, and let it flow. This is a great time to experiment with line thicknesses. So some of your main shapes, you might want to try thicker lines and some thinner lines for your face details or your objects. And then when you get more comfortable with your brush, and as long as your iPad and Apple Pencil are pressure sensitive, you can change the pressure of words. Words are hard. Basically, change how hard you're pushing down with your Apple Pencil, and that will change the weight of your line as you're drawing. You want to use as many smooth motions as possible so you get those nice flowy lines. You can try to lock your wrist and draw from your shoulder so there's a bit less shakiness in your lines. Sometimes that's a little hard on your iPad. I do notice myself like I'm just moving along and then boom, I'm smacking into my iPad case, and it's definitely sometimes ruins the flow, but that's okay. We work with that. We move around it. We do want to make sure all of our lines are nice and connected if we want to use color drop. And today we will be using color drop just to speed up our process and allow us to drop in those flat colors very quickly. So while you are lining your artworks, it's something you always want to try to be mindful of, that all of your lines are touching each other and connecting, so they're not letting colors basically flood your entire canvas when you go to lay down your colors. And don't fret if you're making mistakes. 2 tap for undo, 3 taps for redo. Zoom in some. Try not to zoom in overly much so that you're working on tiny, tiny little areas and everything is pixelated, and then, that's, you're wasting a little time that way. Try to stay zoomed out a bit so you can see most of your drawing. There are obviously going to be instances, especially when you're erasing. I find that I do have a tendency to zoom in more, but I am trying to get better at not zooming in all crazy like and keeping it like it was actual analog or paper drawing just to help increase my skill level. I think these popcorns went really fast in the sketch, so I'm just kind of making a curved C shape and then almost connecting it with like the edges of a bit of a flower. All right, it's time for the fun part. Let's add some color. I'm gonna get rid of my second line art. I just made some boo-boos and that was easier. And I'm gonna put my line art as a reference layer, add a new layer and pull it beneath my line art. And I'm gonna even remember to rename it for you guys. And I'm gonna start dropping in some colors. And this is a little bit of experimentation, play around, see what looks good, what you might want to try out. And this is where we are utilizing color drop so we can speed up our workflow. And this is why it's so important to close your lines. And I tried to keep my colors on separate layers so that I can see. And I just brought down the opacity of my purple a bit so I can actually see where I wanted these cheeks to go. And I actually don't like that original purple lavender as well, so I'm just tapping my screen to get that new color. I'm going to bring my opacity back up because I want solid colors, and then I'm just quickly switching out the colors of my ghost because I just dig that one more. You don't know until you know. And I'm just going to add additional layers to each thing that I'm coloring, or at least each color. Right now, I am just adding some lines to mimic plaid to her blanket. And I'm going to use a couple of different purples to do so. And then I'm actually going to clip this to her blanket. So I'm duplicating the layer that I just drew those lines on. I am tracing around it with the select tool. And then I'm picking a new color and then I'm going to drop it underneath those stripes. And then I'm going to clip those stripes to the blanket. And now I'm just adding some more stripes. And they don't need to be perfect. This is hand drawn. It's cute. I mean, obviously, if you want perfection for your style, that's fine. That's not how I do things around here. I am far from perfect. All right, a new layer, and let's color us some popcorn. So I'm just going to drop these quickly and then I'm going to duplicate them. Once again, I am going to make use of Alpha Lock and fill my layer with a lighter color. And then I'm just going to play around with these and the transform tool to see if I can get them to how I like them. Just by gentle, easy, slow movements just to see if I can manipulate them to kind of give accent colors. And see how they're light, but the darker yellow is kind of highlighting them by the way I'm manipulating the transform tool. It looks super yummy. Alright, and we're just going to follow this up with some new layers and some more colors. I think I accidentally did all of the popcorn box on the one layer for this one. And whoops. So then I'm just going to go in and do the VHS and the bow. And I think that's about it on the flat lay colors. And then we're going to go ahead and add some shadows. So this time for the shadow layers, I'm going to add a layer above the light lavender of my ghost, and then I'm going to select clipping and turn that into a clipping mask, and I'm just going to pick one of my darker purples, and today I'm just going to draw some shadows on top of the ghosts, kind of in some of the curves or bends. And I didn't really develop a light source or decide where the light source was going to be for this one, so I'm totally just winging it. I'm totally winging it. Ideally, pick one direction where your light source is coming from and put the shadows accordingly how your light source would drape on those objects. But whatever, we're just here for a good time today. We're just playing it up and making it look cute. We're just going with the flow and not being too serious. We're just having fun times. Now it's always fun to go into your layers menu and play with the blending modes and the opacity. You can turn it up and down if you want a more delicate shadow. And you can also play with the blending modes to find some fun effects as well. I'm going to go down to the color of the ghost and go ahead and duplicate them, bring them down to the bottom layer, and turn on alpha lock, and then color fill with that shadow color. And I'm just gonna hit the transform tool and tap, 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 just one tap at a time so I can slightly move it. It's not moving as much as I'd like, so more tappy, 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 tap. And now it's moved a little bit under my ghost. There's made a weird line that I didn't want, so I just erased that real quick. And now I'm gonna lower the opacity just so I have a slight shadow beneath my ghost to kind of show that they are floating. Then I'm gonna duplicate the line art, bring the new duplicate under, same thing, alpha lock, and fill that layer. And I'm just gonna transform and then tap, tap, tap to make a slight shadow under their little tiny stick arms. And that's just kind of to create a little depth and make them look not quite as flat. And I'm just playing with the opacity and the blend modes to see if there's something really fun we can make that would be a nice little surprise. Now that we have our shadows where we want them, let's go ahead and add a background layer. So new layer under all of our layers above the background. We want to create our own background layer. And I'm just going to pick a couple of different colors and select fill layer, or you can just drag and drop the color onto the screen as well. And I'm just going to play around till I get something that I think I might like. Alright, now I'm going to put a new layer on top of that. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn off my background layer, 3 fingers wipe down, and I'm going to copy all and paste my ghost so they're an inserted image. And then I'm going to alpha lock and fill that inserted image with a lighter color than my ghosts, because what I want to do is create a little bit of a halo effect. So I'm just going to use Gaussian blur, but obviously I'm gonna forget to turn off alpha lock, so it's not gonna work, and it's gonna take me a minute to figure that out. So let me go ahead and speed this up a bit, and before I do that, I'm just kind of using the transform tool to drag the background glow and make it a little bit bigger. Now let me speed up this where it takes me like 5 minutes to figure out that I don't have Gaussian blur turned on, or Gaussian blur, however you would like to pronounce it today. Moral of the story, if something doesn't appear to be working, double check your layers, your settings, and see if you can figure it out. Alright, now we're gonna get a subtle, fuzzy, blurred effect for the back of our ghost, and I'm just turning everything back on to see how that looks and see if they look like they're nice and lit up in style. And I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes using my transform tool, making my shadow bigger, smaller, not shadow, my glow, playing with the blend tools, see what I like, playing with the opacities, and even a couple of different colors. Alright, I'm going to do another layer on top of my background color that I've created on its own layer, and I'm just going to pick a fun brush to go ahead and add some accents to the background. Now, I went ahead and turned on my grid in the drawing guide, but I really didn't need it. It really didn't help with anything for this specific brush, but anyhow, I'm just adding some fun dots and just putting them all over the background. I am holding them to snap into straight or straightish lines. And then I'm just going to decorate the background with these, and I'm going to just add it in a couple of different colors. You could go through and look through any of your fun brushes, any texture brushes you might have, or any little detail brushes you might have to give a cute background and just add some extra interest to your little ghosties. Alright, now that I have my background in, I'm going to go play with my glow a little bit more because of that kind of wiped it out. Then I'm going to go back down to my background and play with those colors in blend modes just to see if there's anything that I like there, but no, I don't think so. So we're going to go up and to the top, and we're going to put in a couple layers and add in some light colored highlights. So you could use highlights where you think the sun would be shining on your objects or the light source. In this case, I didn't really decide light source, shame on me. So I'm just gonna play and add a couple of highlights where I think they would be fun, cute, and where they'd make my illustration pop. And as you can see, I've also added a layer above my line art so that I can go in and add some little fun sparklies to my eyes, add some lighting to my accessories, and just wherever you might like. And if that's not your style, you don't have to do this step at all. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my drawing guide, take a look at my picture, and I think she is good to go. So I'm just going to add my signature stamp, and I can turn off the background layer and go up to share and export as a PNG. So we did it. We had ourselves a cozy drawing sessions. Now you should have a cute little group of ghosts with a personality and a cozy little scene. Mine look like they're about to settle in and have themselves a fun movie night, and yours should too. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you subscribe for more fun drawing tutorials, business tips, what I'm learning, fun, chaos. We hang out, we have a good time, we make cute stuff. And make sure and leave me a comment with the next character you're looking forward to drawing. And if drawing's still freaking you out, I'll go ahead and leave a link to my free digital drawing without Overwhelm workbook. It has some easy exercises to get you started and lots of cute prompts along the way as well. So, alright, bye, subscribe, it's free.